Good evening. Let us begin our second Dharma talk this fall in the library. And yes, last week we had a brief outline of what we are, what this world is as per the Zen perspective, the Zen view. And as you know, the title of this series is We Are the Way. Why do we say that? Because outside of our mind, outside of our determination, there is no way. It's a very important point. So if we don't make our minds clear, if we don't walk on the path to liberation, there is no other path and other way and other liberation. Okay? That's why we have this title. So last week we clearly outlined what is life, what is death, what is becoming or birth, and dying or annihilation, as some people believe. And we also outlined the Zen circle, what it means to progress on the path. Now we look at something really important, which is in the Heart Sutra, which you might be already familiar with, but nonetheless it's useful to repeat it, it's useful to put it together again. In the Heart Sutra we have the Five Skandhas. In Chinese Korean, O-on, okay? So if you look at the Heart Sutra, it gives you a very interesting setup, a layout of our existence, and it begins with the sentence, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty. This is the first sentence of the Heart Sutra. So, what is Prajna Paramita or Transcendental wisdom? Transcendental wisdom is exactly the 360 degrees on the Zen circle, which we mentioned last week. So this Transcendental wisdom is free from life and death, yet it is spotlessly clear, like a mirror, clear like space, and in this mind, with this mind, you can see that the sky is blue, the trees are green, mountain is tall, water is flowing. Okay? So this is the kind of mind which is in the first line of the Heart Sutra, the Prajna Paramita. It is not special. Maybe we don't have that experience all the time, but if we practice, we can have that experience, a stable, clear, mirror-like consciousness with compassion, wisdom, and strength. Okay? But to be able to do that and experience this, we have to really understand what is this O-on or five skandhas. And that is also in the Heart Sutra in English form. That's our body. We don't say body because this is also a form, okay? But it doesn't have all the five skandhas. Human beings have, okay? Feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. So this is the body. But if I don't have feelings, I touch this table and the table doesn't touch back. It doesn't have any notion or consciousness of being touched. But somebody knocks really hard against your fist, you feel it, the other feels it. That's how boxing became a sport, okay? Because you feel pain when they hit you. And if you feel so much pain that you cannot take it anymore, that means KO, knocked out, okay? So boxing is based also on the five skandhas because you have feelings. Not only that, you perceive these feelings and inside say, oh, it hurts. Okay? And then the impulse is, if you have sufficient amount of anger, to hit back. The impulse is to hit back. And the consciousness is actually playing with all this arranging your hits, your, straights and jabs, in such a way that you could use the other four skandhas in the best way in boxing to knock out your opponent. Okay? So consciousness is your thinking. Impulse is connected to your will, to your willpower. Perception is this clear mirror, function. And feeling is all the emotions, all the physical impulses, everything that goes from the body to the mind. And the form is the external thing, is this material thing we call human body, which is actually 68% water, for your information. And the rest is something else. The rest is organic, mostly carbon. Okay? But our form as a setup is really interesting because it has the 5 senses, and it has the brain for thinking, and that houses our mind. Okay? So this form has the 5 senses plus the brain. Earlier we outlined the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and thinking as the 5 plus 1 senses. And above that we mentioned the manas, the judgment mind, or the duality mind, which makes our dualities. And the alaya, the 8th consciousness, which is our memory. In there we store everything which happens in the 5 senses and in the brain. So the consciousness is linked to the brain. Okay? So I hope it's clear for everybody, 5 skandhas are different from the 5 senses, completely. Okay? So if you have a pentagon, and you call this our existence, then the 5 skandhas are the building blocks. Okay? They are the building blocks. And what the Buddha found, and what the patriarchs and great practitioners, lay or sunim alike, experienced, is that originally the 5 skandhas do not exist. They don't have any existence on their own. We make them. So talk about destiny after this. You don't have it. You think you have it. But you have total and ultimate freedom if only you realized it. So of course we have our situation, our families, our relationships, our functions, etc. But it's something that we have taken when we were born. Okay? Originally, we do not have such karma which would totally and absolutely bind us. When we talked about the 3 major characteristics of existence, one of them was impermanence, the other was causality, and the other was conditioned existence. Okay? All these 3 actually tell you that karma within the 5 skandhas does not exist on its own. We make that. So the 5 skandhas are really the environment where all your karma resides, where you have all your memories, all your feelings, all your impulses, what you want to do. So when we recite the Heart Sutra, we really recite the song of liberation. Okay? Which means originally no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Okay? And right at the beginning, because we don't pronounce the whole thing, otherwise it would be too long, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. So feelings are emptiness, emptiness are feelings. Perceptions are emptiness, emptiness is perception. And you can play the whole thing logically through with all the 5 skandhas. In short, that's what it means that the 5 skandhas are empty, because all come from emptiness and all return to emptiness. Hard to believe, right? I don't want you to believe. That's not a belief course, okay? Because belief in Korean is minnungot, something you believe. But in Zen we experience, and that's kyongkhom. So that's different. All this serves is just a very logical and clear outline of our existence, which you may choose to believe or not. It's up to you. But what's really important is that if this inspires you to have an attempt or a sustained effort to experience our true self, our true existence, which is free from any bondage, free from the five skandhas, you can do it. Meditation teachers tell you how. Earlier on, we dealt with Zen meditation. I talked about body, energy, breath, and mind, how they connect and how we can use them. Okay? So, basically the five skandhas are something not to be afraid of. Okay? We use them as the building blocks of our personalities. Okay? They are the building bricks of our walls. Okay? But also they can be the gateways to our liberation. Because you hear the teaching with your ears. You see with your eyes. You process the teaching with your mind. So originally the five skandhas are neither hindrance nor merit. Okay? They are just as they are. Okay? So this is a very brief introductory, and at the end of this introductory, I would like to quote the end of the Heart Sutra. And the end of the Heart Sutra has two parts. One is when we talk about the teaching itself. Because the teaching itself ends about 2/3 through the Heart Sutra. And then it comes into a very interesting phase, the last third, which says, without any hindrance, no fears exist. Of course, it begins with the bodhisattva depends on prajna paramita, our transcendental wisdom, clear mind. And then the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. If we identify with any of these five, we are afraid. We are afraid of impermanence, we are afraid of causality, and we are afraid of conditioned existence. Because all of them are impermanent. All of them are subject to causes and conditions. And that brings us what? A general feeling of insecurity. And because of that insecurity, we do so much harm to each other that it's impossible to tell. That's why it has a very practical and clear value to practice this clear and liberated mind, because you stop depending. Okay? When you stop depending on people, when you stop depending on substances, when you stop depending on your own thinking, then you are really on the path of the bodhisattva. Because you don't make more suffering. You don't make more suffering for yourself. You don't make more suffering for other people. Okay? So we started with a little dry structure, but you see the practical application. Immediately, it realizes in your life. And for generations, those who were on the path of practicing, they realized it, transmitted it, and in new and always renewed forms teach it. So the last one, the last part, say, without any hindrance, no fears exist. And then it comes to the qualification that this is truth, not a lie. This is the most transcendental, the insurpassable, etc., etc. That's not so important. Okay? What's really important is the last line, which is gate, gate, para, gate, para, sam, gate, bodhisvaha. Okay? This comes 3 times. Aje, aje, baraje, barasung, aje, mujisaba. Okay? So, this is the last line. Gate is gate. Gatve, gasse, You have it in a lot of Indo-European languages. Paragate means through the gate. Parasamgate, go through the very gate. Become Buddha. Now, we talked about everything in the sutra, but what is this gate? What is this gate? This point, when you hear the hit, when your mind has no thinking, for that moment, that gate is open. You start thinking again, the gate closes. You keep your mind 100% clear like a mirror, the gate is constantly open. You're attached to your thinking or identify with any of the five skandhas, the gate closes. Okay? So this gate, the gate of no thinking, the Mumon Kwan, that's the gate of liberation. That's why we practice Kanhwasan, not just Myongsang, okay? Not just quiet mind, but perceptive mind, non-dualistic mind, one mind, okay? There's a lot of names for it, but it's only one thing which has no name and no form, and yet in this moment it is complete. That's what hears the sound of the buses outside. That's what hears these neon lights, you know, gently whirring. That's what hears this voice coming from this body. It's very simple, very clear, but we always lose it. Then we have to get it back. Okay? That's our job. That's our human job. So go through the gate. And this is the gate of no thinking. This is the gate of no I. This is the gate of non-duality. Then we are there. But if you look for this gate in the future, if you look for this gate in a very fancy form, if you believe that somebody special can open this gate for you, you're wrong. Only you can, because it's your mind. It's your karma. It's your life and your death. So you have that. You have the key. Everybody has the key. But it takes what? It takes courage to put it into the lock and open it, because you don't know what you find when it opens, because you have never opened it. And because of that, I'm still outside, I'm still shivering, suffering, but at least I know this. I know the dualistic world. I'm familiar with it. I can be a little happy, a little secure. Not much, not 100%, but at least there's a little. But what happens when you open the gate of no thinking? Nothing special, but you haven't experienced that, so many people have a sense of insecurity because of that. Now, how bad should things become? That's the question. How bright should the fire be of your burning house? That is the question. So the Buddha used this metaphor of sentient beings like children in the burning house who are playing with their toys. So how much do we want to play with these toys instead of getting out of the burning house? So that's the homework question for all of you. And now, if you have any questions for me, then please feel free to ask. Yes.
I'm sorry I missed the last time teaching, and just forgive me if you already dealt with my question.
Every question is new, and the teaching is always the same, so feel free to ask.
Actually, I'm still in the dualist world, and then I am going through samsara, and I'm kind of a curious person.
You are a what? Curious person, that's good.
And then, do you have the driver's license?
Now, how much does that help you, whether I have a driver's license?
Actually, the thing I really want to know, if you have, did you sign for the organ donation?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so the reason why I ask I'm asking this question is probably I missed the last lecture. Probably you dealt with it.
Actually, nobody so far asked about driver's license and organ donation. You are the first.
Okay. And then, even though the Sutra says that there's no beginning, no ending, but going through this samsara, there is birth, death, and then some problems are driven, just coming from the where is the ending point and where is the starting point, some sort of things.
Very good question. Let's hold it a little bit here. I answer this. Then if you have more, you can ask. So this Heart Sutra says, no beginning, no end, no pure, no tainted. Okay? So that brings us back to reality. It brings us back to the true state, the way things are. But we make beginning. We make end. We make life. So there is death. We make cars. We make roads. We make accidents. So originally they don't exist. And outside of our karma, they don't exist. We make them. So somewhere we wanted to be born, maybe not consciously, but we had energy for this life. We had desire for this body. It's not good or bad. It's not a sin or a merit. So don't subscribe for any of this merit or sin type of thing, because that's not the way things are. The way things are, we wanted to be born, we were born. That's it. It's as simple as that. We had anger, desire, and a lot of thinking, so we were born. So we make it. And then what makes samsara is us. You make this world into samsara, it becomes samsara. You make this into Guknak Sege, the pure land, it becomes that. It's up to us. We can make this world into paradise. Out of 1 year of the entire world's military budget, you can make the Sahara into a garden. We can do that. Nobody ever wants it. Okay? We are so powerful. These human beings are so powerful, and our consciousness as a collective karma, 6.6 billion karma, at such a low level that we do this kind of karma. We make this kind of karma. Unbelievable. It's like using a spaceship always for sewage dump, okay? Always. So we make things. Not only that, we hold things, we attach to things. We want things, we identify things with them. So that's our mind. But if our mind changes, our karma also changes, then our whole world also changes. Okay? Anything else?
Yeah. From the point, thank you for the answer. And then I'm kind of, I have the worldly specialty in some kind of biology something.
What kind of specialty, I'm sorry?
Biology.
Biology.
Sort of things. Biology related thing. And then if somebody die, when somebody die, you told there are 6, 7, 8 consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can say the first through 6 consciousness which are rooting in the body will be gone, right?
Exactly as I said last week. Weren't you here, by the way?
I know.
As if you were. Wonderful. So?
Probably the thing which you really, really want to reborn would be somewhere in alaya, or storehouse, some sort of thing, or discriminatory dualistic.
Together.
Okay.
Together. That's the karma body.
Hmm? And when and where are they going?
You are really curious, you know. How would I know where it's going? It's up to you. It's your manas, it's your alaya. Okay? And when? Do I look like a calendar where everybody's birth and death is registered? No, hopefully not. Impossible. That's your karma, okay? I was visiting one day in Malaysia, where there are many, many interesting spiritual places. And one place has a shaman. And this shaman is practicing what we call drum writing. It may have happened in Korea also some time ago. But basically what happens is that the shaman is always in a trance. His mind is not thinking, okay? And people submit questions on pieces of paper, and there is a stick which looks like the letter Y, and one hand is the shaman's hand and the other hand is a normal layperson's hand. And here's the drum. And the layman reads the question and the shaman controls the stick. And on the surface of the drum he writes Chinese characters like that. So I asked about a very close relative of mine in my family. So I asked, how long will he live? And he didn't know where the question came from, but he perceived where the question came from. And he just wrote a few characters, and then it was written on paper, because there are people watching this, what he's doing, and they are putting it on paper. And he said, it depends on what he did. That's it. Interesting how you would expect a very miraculous answer from the shaman, like, from the 7th year, in the 10th lunar month, on the 1st day. Okay? Huh? No. He wasn't just smart. He had some wisdom. Okay? I don't know what he says to other people. But this one was very interesting. This place actually looked like a temple. There's some healing there. They recite Amitabha mantra there. And they do this stuff too. And it's really interesting how it works. He says it depends on what he did. So it depends on what you do. If you are not clear and you step out, of this library in Chongno and you step off the pavement, the lights are red and there's this huge bus coming with 40 people, 50 people, 100 people aboard. No matter what the driver does, the bus is fast and heavy. Boom! You didn't pay attention, your life is gone. But if you take care of your life, and you take care of other people, by the way, so that they take care of you, then your life can be very long. It's up to you. It's not written anywhere. You make it. We make it. So that's why some people ask me, Sunim, what do you think? This humanity has bad karma. What will happen? I said, how would I know? It depends on what we do. Okay? It's our decision. If we are clear, we make clear decisions. If you're not clear, we make very bad decisions so that we make bad karma. Then bad karma means suffering. Okay? Is that enough? Okay. More questions? Yeah, sure.
I think there are lots of stuffs in Five Skandhas as a result of our behavioral attitude. And sometimes the stuff is too strong to remove by himself or by self-confidence. So sometimes we have a religious belief to remove by the power of God or power of the higher gods remove that stuff. But according to the Five Skandhas theory, all the conditions or the conditions are created by himself, then
by our interaction with the world. So it's not just your own fabrication. You let things in. So your interaction with the world and your mind create that. Yeah, so go ahead.
Sometimes we need the higher power to remove our many stuffs of Five Skandhas.
Then use the higher power, but what happens when you remove the higher power itself too?
I think that first we believe or we want to remove depend on the higher power.
Use what you want, okay? But don't fool yourself. That's an important thing. Use what you really believe in. But you must believe in it 100%. So if you really observe causality, conditioned existence and emptiness, which is non-self, then higher powers can help you, but not to the absolute. They can help you until this or this, but not to 100%. They can help you somewhat, but then they themselves become a hindrance. Why? Because the last duality is you and the higher power. All of your karma is gone. You become so pure, so meritorious, such a holy person that you are carried around, you know, on a kind of movable high rostrum, okay? But still, there is one duality, you and the higher power. What do you do with that? So then soon this higher power starts to control your mind, which is you controlling your own mind with the higher power belief in between. Do you see that? Go for it if you want to, but that's the way it works.
But sometimes we have to face some problems because we know there is contradictions between Western psychology and Buddhist psychology. And analytical psychology based on the analysis of the mind, and they know our being has a structure of the mind. But how can it be emptiness or vacant?
Emptiness is not nothing. You have nothing in your mind. That's wrong. Okay? Think of emptiness as potential. Okay? Potential is empty and the form is the actual. Okay? Potential means it can become anything. You're married, right? Ask your wife, you know, how she makes the dough for tok, for rice cake, right? That's the potential. It has just a very basic form on the table. Then she decides, oh, I'm going to make green and white tok with a little filling. Nice, not too sweet filling inside. And then she decides to make a form. She can make many kinds of forms. I mean, the women here, they can explain to you how many kinds of rice cakes they can make. Virtually infinite. Right, ladies? You can make infinite kinds of rice cakes. You have beautiful imagination. So that means 10,000 forms, 10,000 names, but out of one substance. So this substance is not nothing, but it's not something either. That's one. And you talked about the contradiction between Western psychology and Buddhist psychology. I have to clarify two things. There's no contradiction, just a different notion of self in Buddhism and in the West. In the West, the notion of self is static. Like we used to think about atoms and matter. We believe this is static. And it's not really changing. So we have a notion of the self in the West until recently, like we used to have of the atoms. We believe that atoms do not dissolve anymore. About a couple of decades ago, 80, 90 years ago, we realized, well, it does. And if you look inside, if you look at yourself, and that's our practice, what am I? You look at it, whoa, what do you see? That's a real interesting movie. More interesting than anything you can see in the Kukchang, in the movie theater. But of course, we like movies too. So that's the notion of the self in Western psychology, that there's an ultimate core that you can call self. And in Buddhism, with the Five Skandhas, that's why your question is wonderful. The Five Skandhas basically divide it into 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And we also say that these 5 skandhas originally do not exist. That means we make them. We bring them about. We give existence to them. So that's a fundamental notion in the West, that the self is indivisible. And in Buddhism, we talk about non-self, that originally your ego, your person doesn't exist, and it's made up of all these elements. And you know what? Physics confirmed it in the subatomic research. Because when they researched atoms, you know how many subatomic particles they found? Just as many as rice cakes, you know. Lots of them. Hundreds of them, if not thousands of them. Some of them exist only for a millionth of a second. Then they disappear. But they are visible in an experimental environment. Some of your thoughts are like that. They just boom. They exist for a split of a second, then they disappear. That's how we live. Okay? Emotions, same. Emotions are a little heavier, but they also disappear. Okay? So that's the fundamental difference. And in some universities, especially in the United States, in the psychology department, Wisconsin University, folks, congratulations, because they practice meditation, and they changed the notion of self in their own curriculum. It doesn't mean that they don't respect, Jung or Freud or Adler or all these folks. They do, but they upgrade themselves as to the current state of affairs. And the current state of affairs, funnily enough, refers back to an original and clear wisdom represented by many Asian traditions, not just Buddhism and Zen. Taoism is right there. Okay? A little bit harder to reach, harder to find, but it's there. They roughly talk about the same thing. Okay? So we have to become clear what we truly are and what this world is, so that we could take another direction, both as an individual and as a group, and a larger and larger and larger group. Because if we do not have the tools, if we do not have the space and time to act, we cannot change. Then we are the victims of our own ignorance, our own anger, our own desire. And that's very sad. Okay? Lately, and check this out if you are really interested, they found a huge field of plastic and other kinds of non-dissolvable trash in the Pacific. It's between Hawaii and the United States. It's as big as the continental United States, if not bigger. Can you imagine that? In some places, it's 1 meter thick. The researchers couldn't believe it. And you know what that is? It's all the plastic and non-dissolvable trash that human beings ever threw into the sea, and the sea currents collected it. That's there. The sea currents collected it because the sea is just a plain and clear existence with clear causality, and he says, if you put plastic into me, you can wait a couple of 100 years, but I don't do anything with it. Okay? So it's non-degradable. So ever since we got started, and ships and oil rigs and people from the shores, they started to put trash into the sea, it's not gone. It's not gone. We believe that it's somewhere where we don't have to worry about it. No, it's still in the sea. And it's poisoning sea life. And then it's poisoning our bodies. Okay? So that's the way cause and effect works, and humanity has to realize it. Something even better. We know that the polar ice caps are melting, right? We know that. We also know that if this is the Earth, I just leave the self here and put here Earth. If here on the equator there's 1%, it goes up, and on the pole it's 4 to 6 degrees. Okay? And we say that in the last 30 years there was a 1 degree average increase. Yeah, on the equator. But on the polar ice caps it's 4 to 6 degrees centigrade, not Fahrenheit, which is smaller. It's centigrade, which you use here. That's why, because of this 4 to 6 degrees up in the Arctic, and also here down in Antarctica, the polar ice caps are melting at an alarming speed. We know that, right? You saw the news. But what's really not so much in the news, but you can find it, and it's truly so, is that because of the melting here, there's methane gas released from the seabed and from the frozen part of the continental shelves. And it's called the methane bomb. It has just dropped. Methane bomb. So don't think about warfare. Think about something even more dangerous than that. Why? Methane is 20 times more harmful as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And we have millions, if not hundreds of millions of tons of it. It's coming from the seafloor, it's coming from the land, it's coming from everywhere. And you can't stop it, not right now. Okay? Everything is melting up here. So the frozen seabed and the frozen Earth used to keep this methane totally solid, captured in the ground. Now it's coming up the surface of the sea and it's dissolving or evaporating into the atmosphere. Humanity, we have another problem to solve, and if we don't act soon, within a couple of years, it's going to get pretty bad. Okay? It's not just our cars. Our cars are actually not that bad. They are bad enough, but they're not that bad. Industry, coal-powered plants, lots of carbon dioxide from other sources, mainly in industry and energy, fossil fuels. It's all there. It's not our destiny, but it's our karma. So if we undo this karma one by one, then we can clean this thing up, which we have to. But how long does it take for us to wake up? That's the question. Okay? So, like I said with the burning house, when do the children realize that something's wrong? So when does humanity realize that something is terribly wrong, not with the little details, but the main focus of our existence? Because if you look at the main focus of various countries, the big countries as well as small countries, because some countries were small and they became big, some countries were big and they became small, and when they were big they did the same thing, all of them. They were always trying to make sure that their power, their financial interest, their political interest, and everything remains safe. They never thought globally. They never thought selflessly. They never had enough wisdom and compassion. Some did, a little, to a certain extent, but most of them did not. And that time should be over. If the great players do not change, then Earth will give us a very strong lesson, without thinking, without wanting, without any ill will. But it's going to happen so fast and so hard that before you wake up, your life has changed fatally, totally, and in the short run, irreversibly. In the long run, everything is possible. But it's a big question how much time and how much energy it takes for us to undo all that we've done, or to clean up the mess that we've made from the Pacific to the ice caps, to the species, to ourselves. Because everything is up to our basic mind quality. That is our fundamental, okay? That's really important. It depends on our mind quality. Lots of wrong views, anger and desire, lots of suffering. It has direct connection with this. Look at the current financial crisis. What brought that about? Yeah, some people talk about currency reserves, industry, benchmarks, indexes, portfolio, bad credits, and all these things. One word. Greed. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's greed. So greed found an institutionalized form to build structured investment vehicles, and parts of this vehicle was already rotten. They were bad debts, bad mortgages. And they were turned into assets, they were turned into bonds, they were turned into portfolio and made look shiny, And when you want to get your money back, it's not there. I give you a very simple metaphor, because if you read the papers, and of course, which you should, it sounds very complicated, but it isn't. Suppose I have an apple or a pear, Korean wonderful pear, right? Pear is the king of all fruits, ladies and gentlemen, at least in Korea. So, pear, you have a wonderful piece of pear. I don't want to advertise any parts of Korea, but the Naju pear is very, very delicious. Okay. So you have a piece of this wonderful Naju pear in your hand, and of course she wants to have it and he wants to have it, and of course I say, okay, I give a little bit to you. You can have it for about 5 seconds, then you can have it for 5 seconds, then you can have it for 5 seconds, and it goes around, because we have only one and there are like 40 people for it. So it goes around. And when you have it, then somebody sees it, and then you can say, yeah, I have this pair for 5 seconds. Can I borrow 2,001 on it? Can I have some money for it? And, you know, when I have it, it's in my hand. So you can bet that I have some collateral to the money. So then they say, it's a little bit risky. But if necessary, you give that pair to me, right? So you say, of course, if it's my turn and I need to give the money back to you, and I don't have it, then I give this pair as a collateral. Okay? Well, every one of you says that. And this pair starts to go around faster and faster, so that you could have more and more money borrowed against it, against its perceived value, which is like, what, 3,000-4,000 won today. If this process becomes as fast as 24 frames a second, then it has the illusion of being continuously in your hand. And that's what happened. 24 times a second, it's in your hand. So to your creditor, it seems very permanent. But the moment something breaks and one of you has to give it as a real pair to somebody, the other 39 is without pair. That's what's happening. Okay? Does this make sense? So watch out. You should have a real pair in your hand. Just go to the market. Okay?